Jayam Vishnu Padapanamaham Saparina Jakcharya Ashtodada Satta Shri Srima His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Foundacharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Padapanamaham Saparina Jakcharya Ashtodada Satta Shri Srima His Divine Grace Shira Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakha Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Gola Bhakta Vinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinang Shyamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagnapuri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Chamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai Hare Rama Sankirtan Ki Jai ISKCON Yutthagadam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Haribo Haribo All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis Hare Krishna All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis Hare Krishna All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis Hare Krishna All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Namo Vishnu Shasmati Namo Krishna Samdi Namo Shasmati Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udidayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 9, text number 39. Antahi tendriyatayat haraye vihitanjari sava bhutamayo vishvam sasajedam sa puvavat antahitendri yataya haraye vihitanjari savaputamayo vishvam sasajedam sapuvavat antahitendri yataya haraye vihitanjari savaputamayo vishvam sasajedam sapuvavat antahitendri yataya haraye vihitanjari savaputamayo vishvam sasajedam sapuvavat yantahitendri yataya Sasavedam Sapubhava. Mataji's. Antahita, on the disappearance. Indriya Ataya, onto the personality of Godhead, the objective of all senses. Haraye, unto the Lord, Vihita Anjali, enfolded hands. Savabhuta, all living entities. Mayaha, full of. Vishvam, the universe. Sasaja, created. Idam, this. Saha, he, Brahmaji. Puvavat, exactly like before. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. Illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly in fulfilling the desire of the Supreme. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, there is the following verse. Akshono phalam tadisha dashanam hi tano phalam tadisha gacha sangha. Jiva phalam tradisha ketana hi sudulabha bhagavata hiroke. O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is fulfilled simply by seeing you. And to touch your body is the fulfillment of the bodily touch. The term is meant for fulfilled by glorifying. The term is meant for fulfilled by glorifying your qualities, because in this world a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. Originally, the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. Lord Brahma thus engaged his senses in the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities to act in the recreated universe. This material universe is thus created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. It is created to give the conditioned soul a chance to act to return home back to Godhead. And servants like Brahmaji, Naradaji, Vyasaji, and their company become busy with the same purpose of the Lord, to reclaim the conditioned souls from the field of sense gratification and return them to the normal stage of engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. Instead of doing so, that is, converting the action of the senses, the impersonalists began to make the conditioned souls senseless, and the Lord also senseless. That is improper treatment for the conditioned souls. The diseased condition of the senses may be treated by curing the defect, but not uprooting the senses altogether. When there is some disease in the eyes may be cured to see properly. Plucking out the eyes is no treatment. Similarly, the whole material disease is based on the process of sense gratification. And liberation from the diseased condition is re-engagement of the senses to see the beauty of the Lord, hear his glories, and act on his account. Thus, Brahmaji created the universal activities again. Om Jnanatiminandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshu Umilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtan Stapidan Yena Budare Swayan Rupa Kadama Hyam Dadati Svam Padantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganana Kunata Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinna Bandhu Jakapade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Nishwari Rishabhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakaupatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishvanebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Antahitendri Yataya Haraye Vihitanjari Sava Puta Mayo Vishvam Sasajeda Sapuvava. Translation again. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with his folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities, as it was previously. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he was saying that originally the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose. namely to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. And therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. So it reminds me of a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 170. It is said in this verse, Savapati vini muktam tap paratena nimulam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchate. Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designation, and one's senses are purified simply by being implored in the service of the Lord. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, text number 15, Srila Prabhu, he wrote a very beautiful purport in this regard. I want to share this with everyone. Let's see. So, in the purport to this chapter 1, text number 15, Prabhu, he said, Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesha in this verse, because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses. But he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity. And in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Rishikesha. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana because he awarded his childhood pastime to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Parthasarathi because he worked as charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Rishikesha because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So from this purport, we clearly understand that actually all our senses is not owned by us. It's actually owned by Krishna. So, if all our senses need to be satisfied, then we should definitely engage in the service of Krishna. Just like, the finger is part of the whole body. So if the finger wants to enjoy, then the finger should stick to the body and work according to the, needs of the body. If you cut the finger, if the finger wants to act on his own, then, if you try it up, you will die. So all the senses should be engaged in the service of Krishna. And also, in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there is also a very nice description in this regard. Prabhu, he said in the 6th chapter of the 26th verse in the purport, he said, the nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady. But a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami. Actually, it is said somewhere else in the Gita, it said that if one can control the mind, then the mind will become your best friend. Otherwise, the mind will become your worst enemy. Yeah. So, Prabhu, he said here, one who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. So, in our Krishna consciousness, in this moment of Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada, he actually gave us so many activities, like the book distribution, prasada distribution, Harinam, deity worship, that every one of us can fully engage our senses. And in this way, we will become happy and satisfied. Yeah. Because all our senses are actually part and parcel of the senses of Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada, he was saying here in today's purport that originally the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. So I just stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Microphone, please. My How do we understand what? Mm-hmm.
Involved, engaged in that reclaiming. So it's that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like the vast majority is what's going on in this material world as at least superficial, at least face value. It seems like it has nothing to do with reclaiming
Right.
conditioned souls back to Godhead. So is there inefficiency in the system, or am I not getting something, or what's going on?
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice question. Actually, it is not the inefficiency of this system. Actually, most of the living entities in this universe, they are all Krishna's devotees. Yeah, only on this earthly planet where we are living now, we see that most of the conditioned souls, they are not devotees of Krishna. But most of the living entities in the heavenly planets, the demigods, they are all more or less, they are all Krishna devotees. Yeah. So this material world again is a prison house. It's just like a jail. So just like in a country, there is prison house, because there will be people in the country against the government law. And for these people, the government has to put them in the prison house. And most of the person are in the prison house, they are not majority of the people in the country. So similarly, in Krishna's kingdom, in God's kingdom, most living entities, they are following the law of God, of Krishna. So that's my understanding to your question. Maybe somebody else have some other point of view. Yeah, please share your insight. Yes, Achita Prabhu and Tutakama Prabhu. Yes.
Devotional service can't be forced. So every soul has the opportunity to take up the process of devotional service or not. And some, unfortunately, use their free will to not serve. So it's an efficient system that respects the free will of the jiva. So you can say it actually has two purposes: to allow them to reform themselves if they so desire, re-engage their senses, or they can continue to use their senses independently, but they have to suffer the results of that, and hopefully eventually learn, or develop the desire to have a different situation other than being entangled in the cycle of birth and death.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful point. Yes, Achita.
Yes, it's those who don't seem to be following, they're actually still being trained. Prabhupada gives the example of like the father and the child. The child wants to put the hand in fire, and the father keeps saying, no, don't do it. But eventually, the father relents and says, okay. Child puts the finger in the fire. once bitten, twice shy, or you get burned once and you don't want to do it again. So these people who don't seem to be following the path of devotional service or any kind of reformation, they're actually still being reformed. Because the kicks that they're getting that result in them going to the hellish planet and getting burned on copper planets and ripped apart, and all of that is training them to turn in the right direction. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mama Vart Manavartante, Manusha Partisarsa, that all living beings are following my path. They may not be aware of it, but Krishna is still in control. Rishikesh is controlling them, and they will be steered. Eventually, they'll go to the Santa Monica Pier and they'll meet Gauranga Prema. They'll get a book, and they'll still go in the right direction.
Thank you. Yes. Satchidananda Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, as it's been, some devotees mentioned, the system of the Lord is perfectly complete in every respect, spiritually and materially. I was listening to a lecture of Srila Prabhupada this morning, precisely, and he says that Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas, the living entity is eternally servant of Krishna. That's our constitution. If we choose Krishna, we're in the right position. If we don't, we serve Maya. Either you serve Krishna, you serve Maya indirectly. So, but the service principle is there, so it's perfect. So how now it is manifest that perfectness in this material creation? So there are different levels here, and Krishna situates different personalities like Lord Shiva, Prema, and Durga to be here. And every living entity fits accordingly. So the purpose is this, that somehow or other they get provided what they need and they serve. They're still serving. The principle of service is still there. So it's perfectly arranged. Like the verse that says, Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Everything coming from the Lord is perfect.
Exactly.
Nothing is incomplete. So that's
good. Thank you. Yes, Naikat Prabhu.
I think the mercy of Lord Chaitanya supersedes everything, that just simply by hearing the holy name that one's devotional service can begin, even if it's unwillingly hearing. That this is the process for this age, and this is the saving grace for everyone, that the holy name can go everywhere and enter every single atom and cell, and the sound vibration can liberate trees and dogs and animals, and enters into food, and becomes prasadam, and this is the mercy.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes. Yes, Naikat Prabhu.
Thank you for the very nice class, Prabhu. Just a comment or point of clarification. Of the Lord's creation, the way I understand it, the majority is in the spiritual world. This is the minority, this material creation.
Yes.
And of this material creation, this universe, for instance, is divided into different planetary systems.
Exactly.
And to say that the majority are devotees is a little bit inaccurate. They may be, to some degree, they're mixed, but there's planetary systems that are middle and lower, which are full of non-devotees. The higher planets, certainly they have devotees, but those devotees are also mixed. And to find the actual devotees, Sudurlabha, those devotees are very, very, very rare. So we're in the minority.
You are right, yeah. Just like the prison house. The prisoners in the prison house, they are the minorities of the country.
Right. But even in the prison house, those prisoners, some of them are not as severe or criminally minded as maybe their next door neighbor
Right.
in the cell.
Right.
But they're all still prisoners.
Right. Thank you. That's a good point. Thank you. Any other things? Okay, we will stop here. Thank you very much for coming for the class. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Haribo, haribo.